of the passengers and those of two pilots of the ill-fated Sax aircraft have been recovered at the crash site southwest of the Abedares. The aircraft that went missing while en route to Nairobi on Tuesday evening crashed on the Abedares ranges due to circumstances that are yet to be established. The bodies are on the way to the Lee Funeral Home here in Nairobi. Our Caroline B has been camping at the Njabini Boys High School since yesterday and now joins us via the phone. Caroline, good evening. What can you tell us so far? It has been a grueling, agonizing time, especially for the families and friends of the individuals that were on that plane. What do we know so far?
Well, good evening to you, Ben. And we are just from getting out of the site where the crash actually happened, or where the bodies were being offloaded into the Lee Funeral Home houses. And the convoy has already left on its way to Nairobi. And a few minutes ago, we actually witnessed, I can say, a drama from the locals who were saying that they were going to block the road simply because they were not paid for the services that they rendered. They were told that they were going to be given money and also food and other foodstuffs due to the fact that they actually helped out in the rescue operations. They went to the ground and helped in retrieving the bodies and also bringing them to the places where they were supposed to be placed into the vehicles on foot, which was quite a very difficult challenge, especially for the teams that were sent out yesterday. Remember, close to around 12 teams went out yesterday, but to no success. They were not able to spot anything. And then a team this morning was sent, close to 50 officers, also from the Red Cross, together with these locals who went out, simply understand the terrain and the environment quite well. So they all went together and they were told, you know what, if you're able to do any or actually help out, give out any kind of assistance, then we were going to pay you. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And so they had planned to block the road. But when a contingent of police officers was sent to that place, close to 5 vehicles, actually counted 5 vehicles, I think they actually closed down, fearing the chaos that could have erupted. Some of the businesses had already closed shop, and others were planning to do the same. But once that cleared and the convoy was allowed to pass, then business came back to normal. Right now, they are proceeding to the Lee Funeral Home. Maybe in the next 1 hour, they will be there. Ben.
Caroline, of course, the weather has been cited as something that did hamper the rescue effort, the search and rescue. The wreckage was found at the very peak of the Abedares ranges, a peak known as Elephant Hill. What can you tell us about the terrain?
Well, about the terrain, for ages, this place has always been misty and foggy. And looking at the mountainous kind of region, we would expect that to happen always. And I can tell you, even right now, when we are coming back to Nairobi, it is very misty and it's quite hard for us to navigate the road. And that is the same challenge that the aircraft that was supposed to be to actually do the rescue operations faced. As from yesterday, it was called off. The rescue operations were called off yesterday due to the bad weather, and it is said that this plane actually got this accident due to that bad weather. It hit a side of the Elephant Hill, then it rolled down the cliff. That was 5,000 feet from the sky, therefore leading to the death of all the people who were there on board. And no rescue operation could be done with the choppers. The 7 of them were here yesterday, and none of them could actually land on the ground today. They were all located in Naivasha, and therefore, when these bodies were recovered, there were 2 plans. Either the planes would land on top of the hills, but when the situation or the weather got worse, then it actually forced the rescue teams to come by foot with the bodies. And that is the situation of the weather and the challenges that actually has been which hampered the rescue operation.
Thank you, Caroline. Caroline B, who has been following the search and rescue teams for the last 2 days or so. Bad breaking hard news there. All 10 individuals that were aboard that flight 51 CSC did lose their lives. The bodies have been brought down the mountainous crash site. They are currently en route to the Lee Funeral Home here in Nairobi via road. We shall be taking you very shortly to the Lee Funeral Home, where our Timothy Otieno is standing by to just tell us the very latest on this. A very difficult time, of course, for the families and friends. Now, an interim board of management has been put in place to oversee transition at the troubled Moi Girls School, Nairobi. Meanwhile, new office bearers for the Parents Association were elected today ahead of the school's reopening set for this coming Sunday. But as our Shadrach Miti reports, parents are calling for more heads to roll at the institution following what they termed as deep-seated rot.
It was the first sitting for the Moi Girls School Nairobi parents after the Minister of Education ordered for the closure of the school a few days ago, following a rape incident at the school last Saturday. The main agenda was the election of new officials for the Parents Association ahead of the reopening of the school on June 10th.
And we'll need people who have the passion and the seriousness of the school. And now, as today, as you elect the officials, we don't want to condemn the other members. Don't want to condemn them. But we have learned our lessons.
Although the government has promised to streamline the school's management by setting up an interim board of management as investigations and other necessary measures continue to be put in place, parents are demanding for more action.
But we need to be broadly told what is in place before we bring our children back on Sunday.
Our concern is what are you going to do immediately so that by Sunday when their children are coming back, you have ensured there is a fence in place.
The issues of the toilets being located out of the dormitories is a serious issue, especially at night. And I believe the incident that happened could be related to this, whereby it is 2 a.m., it is 3 a.m., and your child is walking several meters to the washrooms.
Why are we only dealing with the principal at a management level? You know, let us call a spade a spade. If we are dealing with Board of Governors, we have dissolved it. If we are dealing with Parents Association, we have dissolved it. And now only one person in management has gone. We need proper reforms in this school.
Even as parents converge to lay ground for the reopening of the school this coming Sunday, it is evident that all is not well. And from where they sit, parents insist that a complete overhaul of the school management is required. But even as the government promises to get to the bottom of every problem at the school, parents are also demanding value for the huge sums of money they pay at the school.
And I want to assure the parents, I'm also a parent, that all the recommendations will be implemented to the letter.
Besides electing new officials to the Parents Association, another 6 parents were selected to be co-opted in the school's board of management once it is constituted. Shadrach Miti, KTN News, Nairobi.
Let's take you back to news of the ill-fated Sax Flight 5Y CAC. Let's cross over to the Lee Funeral Home, where our Timothy Otieno is standing by to tell us what's happening there. Timothy, good evening. We have been reporting that the bodies of the 10 individuals are currently on their way to where you are right now. What can you tell us? What is the mood like there?
Well, Ben, nothing much to report about here at the Lee Funeral Home. It's still quiet. The gates behind me here remain closed. Not much activity, even as the bodies make their way from Jambini in Nyandarua County here to Nairobi, where perhaps most likely an autopsy for all the 10 bodies will be conducted, possibly tomorrow. People assume perhaps by the government pathologist as well as private pathologists that will be hired by the various family members, because this is a matter now that has since yesterday been taken over by the government. None other than the president himself, of course, communicating his condolences to the family through his social media account, Twitter this morning. He sent out messages of condolences and, of course, assured the family members, if I could quote him, that, of course, this matter would be followed. He said he sends his deep condolences and to the family members of of those affected, and he said that he will ensure that his administration can offer the assistance now and in the coming days, that they can be sure that there will be a full review of the procedure so that they can understand how this tragedy occurred. And perhaps that is now the next phase of this particular calamity. The family is beginning to try and piece together exactly what happened, and the review perhaps the rescue operation that took 2 days. Of course, the aircraft went missing Tuesday evening at about 5 p.m. It is only up to this morning at about a few minutes past 7 a.m. That the officials were able to spot the wreckage that took place in the Abedares hills, and between 7 a.m. the rescue operators on the ground were able to reach that particular plane at about 12:30 in the afternoon. So that's about 6 hours of trekking through the hills, and as they have mentioned, no survivors in place. Earlier on this morning, we were speaking to the Director General of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, Mr. Gilbert Kibe, who did confirm that indeed this particular aircraft was supposed to initially land at the Wilson Airport, but for one reason or another it was diverted to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. He could not give substantive reason as to why that particular directive took place, and that change of destination from the Wilson Airport to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is what made that particular aircraft use an alternative route that required them to go through Kinangop. And in his explanation, the Director General, of course, saying that that deviation from the initial destination was perhaps due to bad weather. But the irony is, nonetheless, they were experiencing that bad weather that preliminary investigations attribute to this particular crash. The families were, of course, held up for a second day at the Weston Hotel. Very limited answers coming forth from the, of course, search and rescue team. But now moving forward, Ben, the investigations begin. The autopsy of all 8, including 2 pilots, Barbara Wangeshi, who was the pilot, assisted by Jean Mureithi, and 8 other gentlemen, including 3 foreigners, 2 from the Caribbean, 1 American citizen, who had apparently was taking that flight to Nairobi to renew his work permit that was supposed to be done before the end of this week, Ben. So we wait for tomorrow to hear what perhaps the investigative authority will be telling the family members, even as we get assurances from none other than the head of state himself that his administration is going to take this matter serious to find out the bottom of this particular accident, Ben.
And Timothy, very quickly, who is on hand where you are to receive the bodies? Any sign of any government officials, maybe officials from FlySax, any family members perhaps?
Nobody is here at the moment. As far as we know, the families of those affected were still at the Weston Hotel, where they had been paid for specific rooms as a central place where communication would flow smoothly if they were all centered in one place. At this particular place, there is no authority, no family member. We have not spotted anybody in regards to this particular wreckage, but perhaps because most of the focus through the entire 2 days was in Njambini High School, where they had set up a makeshift communication center, and that caravan is now making its way towards Nairobi. Of course, our colleagues who have been covering this particular event, Caroline B. and our cameraman Hebron Kinyoda, on their way to Nairobi, even as they are accompanied by members of the Red Cross, some of the family members who went to the crash site as they make their way to Nairobi. But at this particular place, nobody in sight, no government official, no family member at this particular moment, Ben.
Thank you, Timothy. Timothy Otieno there, excuse me, at the Lee Funeral Home in Nairobi, where the bodies are heading to for identification. We are keeping an eye on the developments for you. Now, away from that,